Welcome to a very special event between Jupiter Broadcasting and the Elementary OS team. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by Daniel and Cassidy from Elementary OS today, and they're going to share a very exciting announcement with us. Daniel and guys, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
Great.
Hey,
and
thanks for having us.
Hey, Cassidy, glad to have you here too. So Daniel is calling in, and Cassidy's calling in, and they're going to tell us about the special things they have in the works for us. What's going on, guys?
Okay, so I'm super excited because we have like something really cool we're going to announce today. But before we do our little announcement, I kind of want to talk about Elementary itself as a company and kind of what we're doing right now. So it's been a little over a year since our last release, right? And let's see, it was released in April, and it was downloaded a little over 1 million times. 1.2 million downloads is our estimated mark right here, you know, plus or minus for torrents. And we're super proud of this stat that for those downloads, 73% of those are coming from closed source OSs. So this is like a really big deal to us because we feel like that part of our mission as a company isn't just to compete with other open source desktops, but we want to expand the open source desktop market share over closed source. So we want to work together as a community to do this. And we think that like showing that 73% of our downloads are coming from closed source OSs really goes to prove that we're succeeding on this mark. Whew, that was a lot to say.
And it's impressive too.
So over the last little over a year, we've been chugging away at our bug tracker. We've closed over 1,000 issue reports and implemented over 20 blueprints. And these are stability and security improvements, internationalization improvements, new features, new options. These are all things that our users are asking us for all the time. And in order to do that, we've been kind of pushing the second major mission for Elementary, which is to create more open source jobs. And so the kind of initial pillar of that is that we are now employing 3 people on our payroll, which I'm super excited about. And we've also, over the last year, paid out almost $9,000 in bounties to Bounty Source, which brings our total up on Bounty Source to over $17,000. Wow. So I'm pretty excited about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So after all of this, after over a year, after pushing this mission to increase open source desktop market share, after closing these reports, hiring new people, paying out bounties, we're super excited to finally announce the next release of Elementary OS, codenamed Loki.
Wow. Congratulations, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm super excited to be here to celebrate the Loki release with you. Full disclosure, I had a couple of days with the new release. I've been running on a few different pieces of hardware, including screens with high DPI displays, laptops, and desktops. And so I've got a lot of things to share and a lot of opinions that I've been sort of shifted, I think, and I want to share those with you guys too. But why don't we start with some of the big ticket items that people are going to notice right away? And I, coming from GNOME and Unity desktops, one of the first things that jumped out at me is really polished and looking slick, and probably have gotten some work since the last update, were the new indicators that are in there. These indicators that look really slick. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Cassie, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. So the new indicators are completely rewritten from scratch. We actually have had these designs kind of sitting around in the backs of our minds for a while and finally took the technical plunge to implement them. So they're no longer using the old Ayatana indicators. They're completely native plugins to the panel. Yeah, you've got the session menu that has nice big avatars for your users if you've got those set. You've got the new notifications panel that has a do not disturb mode built into it. And you can jump into your notification settings right there. And that's awesome because it actually catches all the notifications from apps, a lot like you'd expect on a mobile device or any modern OS. So yeah, it's really awesome. And you click that notification and open up the app. It works really, really well. It's one of my favorite new features is the notifications and the that indicator.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to talk more in a minute about the power indicator, which has gotten some really cool features too. In fact, why don't you? Well, you know what? That's a good transition point. Why don't we talk about it a little bit? It is, in fact, if I start jumping around on my computer, you'll notice there's some things that show up in this menu now that may surprise you. If you jump in there, from time to time, you'll see applications that are using the most amount of power on your computer. And I think this is really, there you go, right there. App's using lots of power. System settings. So as a laptop user, I don't have to have I don't have to figure out how to install PowerTop and run the command line PowerTop in a terminal. I just drop this menu down, and I am immediately notified of what applications are consuming a lot of battery life. That's really cool.
Right, and so that also helps us when we're developing applications to know, are we as first-party developers or our third-party developers, using too many resources, and then you can know also like what to go close if you want to really eke out the most battery. For example, right now I'm doing the video chat, and the web browser app's using a lot of power. It's sitting there the whole time. Because web browsing or video chatting takes up a lot of power. So it's good to know, if that was running in the background and I had forgotten about it, I would be able to tell that right away.
And I believe it also has the capability of showing the battery level of certain types of accessory devices like wireless mice and things like that.
Wireless mice. Yes, if you have a wireless mouse of some sort, or I believe certain like Bluetooth devices and I know Logitech devices, they'll show actually the little icon there with the name of the device and its charge level as reported by the device too. So like I have a Logitech wireless mouse and keyboard at my desktop. I get a little notification pops up that says, hey, your keyboard's getting low and I know to plug it in. It's very handy.
I've noticed pretty darn good battery life too with the Loki release. In some of my testing, it's actually gotten the best battery life out of any of the more recent distros I've reviewed this year. So I'm not sure exactly what you've tweaked there, but it's working really well. Cassidy or Daniel, whoever, would you like to also touch a little bit on some of the other redesigned things in system settings? I know something that people don't often think about, but it's super important for those who need it, and that would be universal access. This area has gotten a lot of work, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff that's going into Loki that are things that you might not totally encounter in your day-to-day use, but for the people that these tools are really necessary for them, I think it brings Elementary Rust to more people. And accessibility settings is one of them. And we've been trying to reach out to different communities and get their feedback and get an idea of what kind of tools that people use and what kind of tools that people need. And so I think this one is a really big deal. We've added larger text size options was one of the things that we got feedback on for low vision users. And just trying to make this easier to navigate and double check to make sure all the settings make sense when you read them and it's easy to find what you're looking for. Another huge one is if you go into the keyboard settings, back into all settings, and then the keyboard settings pane.
Oh, you mean not universal access? Oh, right. Okay. So keyboard. Yep. Here we go.
Yep. So if you go to keyboard and then on to layout, this pane, actually, you can see right now you've got the compose key up there now. So it's easy to get to the compose key. We used to have this big options tab that was like a junk drawer, and we actually killed that. And what we did is that we have all these options that they show in line now. So if you add, say, Japanese, you'll get the extra options for, I believe it's like the third layer to choose what these things do, or different languages have different requirements for their input options. And so we kind of show those intelligently now, and it's right there with the layout that you're editing instead of having to kind of hunt through the junk drawer to figure out where it is.
I want to stay on this theme for a second if we can, and maybe talk a little bit about the network panel, because I know this has gotten some refresh, but there's also a hotspot feature in here that sounds super cool.
Yeah, so it looks like the hotspot isn't pulling up on that computer because there's no wireless card detected, right?
Yep.
But if you have a wireless card, then you'll see the option for the hotspot. And what that is it allows you to share another internet connection through your Wi-Fi card. So if you are on an Ethernet connection and you need to broadcast wireless to some device, and for some reason you don't have a router, you can do that. Broadcast it out to create an ad hoc network, or theoretically, what this feature is for when we start getting to devices that have like broadband cards built, or not mobile broadband cards built in, that you would be able to reshare that network out over your Wi-Fi. So if you get into more mobile device form factors, so we're trying to build for the future there and put in some more advanced networking features.
It feels like a lot of little refinements and improvements in here, which just make it really easier for people to get access to control the things they want. Is there anything else in here you wanted to touch on? Those are the ones that jumped out at me.
Parental control is a new feature in this release.
Very cool looking too.
So if you have a secondary user set up on your computer, you can set up access rules for them for websites that they can and can't visit, and that works in any browser. It doesn't just have to be the built-in browser, so they can't just like get to a different web browser and bypass that.
How is that done?
I believe it's through the hosts file, which is a pretty standard networking thing, but it's done at a low enough level that if that user doesn't have admin access, they can't easily bypass that. And so then there's also application access rules, and I believe that's done with a daemon that actually runs and sees if they have access to the certain applications on the whitelist. So it works really well. It's great for if you have kids or a younger sibling or something that you want to have a permanent account for, not just use the guest mode, but you want to actually have a permanent account that has some rules and restrictions on it.
Yeah, I love the interface. It's straightforward and obvious. You can set operational times for the computer. The internet rules, I like that you're using the host file, because that means if they decide to use Firefox or Chrome, it's still going to have the same thing. And running specific applications, that is really nice. And it's a common question we get into the Linux Action Show is how can I do parental controls for my kids on Linux? Because a lot of parents want to put their kids on Linux for obvious reasons. And
exactly.
That is super nice.
And I think there's a lot of third-party tools out there that all have different interfaces, but here it's built right into your operating system.
Could also just be a great way to create a limited account for a certain family member or guests or something like that. I mean, I see there's a guest account, but yeah. All right. Well, that is really neat. And there's a new online accounts in there. There's a lot to check out. The sharing stuff looks really cool too. But I wanted to transition, if we could, just briefly to the application menu, because I know this has gotten a couple of tweaks. I believe one of the neat tweaks now is in the search. You could actually put in a website URL and it'll open up the web browser and take it. That's a great little handy feature. So this is a feature that's been in Elementary OS for a while, and it just seems to keep getting better and better, guys. Is there anything that jumped out at you on this new application menu updates?
Yeah, one of the big things that we did is that you can search for quick list actions, and this uses the free desktop spec for actions. So this works like out of the box with a bunch of applications already. So if you type in, like for a screenshot, you can see you get area screenshots or current window screenshots, things like that.
That is really cool. So it knows some of the actions of some of the applications in the menu, and you can just search for those particular actions.
Right, so you can jump right into doing a particular thing with an app with the keyboard input.
That is really slick. That is something I don't know if I would have caught unless you told me about that. There's a couple of things that I love. I just would like to talk about for a moment. Mail makes its debut as the official mail program, right, in Loki, transitioning from Geary, if I'm correct.
That's correct. Yeah, we were shipping Geary before, and then unfortunately Yorba is no longer around, and we loved the client so much that we decided to take over development for it, and so we forked it off, and we've been working on it, doing all kinds of new stuff. The real big change is that we rewrote the conversations view, and it used to be just a web view, and now it's actually a native GTK view where each individual message is rendered in web views instead of the whole thing. So it should be faster.
Yeah.
It's more keyboard accessible.
Has some nice animations too, I noticed.
Yeah, animations. And also it supports right to left language layouts now.
Now,
so that's important for internationalization.
So this is sort of like a first release of Mail, and it debuts in Loki, correct?
That's right.
That's nice. Now, the other applications that we're familiar with, Music and Calendar, have gotten some improvements. Like the one thing that I thought was pretty impressive is Calendar now supports natural language for setting appointments. So I'm going to have a video conference with Cassidy and Daniel at 10 a.m. You just type that in there, and it automatically parses that and adds it to your calendar. That's really nice for somebody who's in a rush. So well done on that. But there is one application that got a complete replacement. One of the standard applications, everybody uses it, and it's kind of a critical choice. And there's a new web browser debuting in Loki, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, so we in the previous releases we've shipped Midori, and we have a pretty close relationship with the Midori team, and it's a really good GTK3 WebKit browser. But when we were looking at Loki, we saw that the GNOME team has taken on the Epiphany web browser, and it's got a newer version of WebKit GTK. It's faster. It's very, very slim, and with just a couple of UI patches, it fits in really well with Elementary OS. So
yeah,
it's really nice. It's got the really good new WebKit inspector. So it's a really good choice for this release, and we're really happy with it.
It's a fast browser too, and there has been an overall sort of journey to modernize WebKit throughout Loki release. Is that a fair assessment, you think?
Right. So most of the stuff in Foré is using WebKit 1, and in Loki we've jumped up to using WebKit 2 for nearly everything, and we're trying to push that across the board because it's better on security, it's better for stability, you get per tab processes and things like that, which is really nice in the web browser.
Absolutely.
So one thing crashes, it doesn't take down the whole application. And this is good for other apps that use multiple web views as well, like in Mail, right? Like if you get, for some reason, a weird email that somehow crashes your web view, it won't take down the whole client. You can just reload that message.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's nice, and it's good to see that sort of upgrade throughout. But I might be the most excited about the possibilities and the long-term potential of the new AppCenter. I want to talk about the new AppCenter, guys. It's great because not only is it a way to discover applications. Did you see how fast that just loaded too? That thing just flies open. It's also not only a place to discover applications, but it's where you go to do your system updates. So it looks like a pretty important one. Cassidy, can you tell me a little bit about the genesis of this and where you guys are going?
Sure, yeah. So AppCenter is a completely native app that we've written from the ground up. We do use the underlying app stream technologies, which are the same thing that's being used in GNOME software and on Ubuntu. But the idea here is that we really want a good selection of software that we know works well on Elementary OS. And so as of right now, it just pulls from the repositories for apps that have app stream data. But we do have plans in the future that we're not ready to share the full details of, but we do have plans for the future of doing a little bit more curation and apps that are actually designed for Elementary OS specifically, and making it really, really easy to get them in here. And
that is exciting, and I also like that the updates are integrated in. So you can see here, I have 4 updates that were pushed out over the weekend. Some OS updates, AppCenter itself, network connections, all just right here. I click that, it asks for my password once, and just goes and installs in the background. So it's one place, and I get a little badge down in the dock that tells me, hey, Chris, you have 4 updates to install. And that's how I even knew to launch AppCenter in the first place. So that's right, really well done, Cassidy.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, we like to make use of those nice developed technologies like app badges and notifications to really show like that advantage of native applications that are built for the platform.
Sure. Now, the number one thing that I was impressed by, because just distros don't ever get this right, and I don't understand why, high DPI support out of the box. I installed it on my XPS 13. Thought, okay, I'll try it with. Let's throw the high DPI test at it because every distro blows this test. I'll throw it. I threw it on the XPS 13 Sputnik type edition with the high resolution 4K display. And you know what, Cassidy? I tell you, I couldn't honestly even tell you if there's a button anywhere in Elementary OS to turn on high DPI because it just worked out of the box. That is pretty impressive, and it's one of those behind the scenes things. It must have taken a little bit of work, right? I mean, it must have taken some effort to do that.
Yeah, so we rely on the underlying GNOME settings daemon to do that detection, which works really well. But Dan can tell you more about the actual design work that goes into supporting high DPI.
I love it. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I recently did a little crowdfunding experiment on the side to pick up a new high DPI notebook because we've been getting people reporting issues about high DPI, but I didn't have any way to see them yet.
Sure.
So I ran this little crowdfunding campaign, and I picked up this Yoga 900, which is my main machine now. I've been using it 100%, and so my working environment every day is high DPI. So I've been submitting a lot of different patches to different parts of the OS to bring up high DPI support. And we're like 95% of the way there. It's real close. There are a few things that still bug me that we're trying to figure out issues on how to resolve them. Notifications are kind of tiny, and some of the multitasking view and more advanced animation stuff like that is a little funky still. But for the most part, we've been doing a lot of work to make sure that high DPI just works across the board and everything looks nice and crisp, and you don't get weird like blurry images or anything like that.
Yeah, you've done a great job, and the performance still seems to be really good, and the whole like everything from the login screen down to the desktop environment landed pretty much, I would say, better than any distro I've ever experienced, and definitely miles better than the Windows 10. So you know, if you're seeking out those users who are looking for a great, clean, open desktop they want to move to from Windows, and one of the things they're getting sick and tired of is half of their interface in Windows 10 doesn't support high DPI. This is a refreshing change right here. And I want to also take a moment while we're talking about design and the way things look. I want to talk about something I observed in my testing. And I think it speaks to a great volume of some of the intent and planning that went into creating this desktop environment that's really paying off now, years into it. And so I'm pulling up a couple different applications here so folks can get kind of a grasp of the general UI. You're starting to see some commonalities between these applications, even the videos one. So up on my screen, I have the music player, the photo player, and the video player. And the UI between these three applications, especially music and photos, are striking. They are very, very similar. And that, for end users, means I learn an interface, I learn a paradigm once, and then I'm able to reuse that same knowledge in the next application that I open up. My desktop gets out of the way. I start getting my work done. I understand how these things work. They feel cohesive. One of the things people used to say about the Mac all the time is it has a, you know, it's all unified desktop. This is that to the nth degree. I mean, this is truly taking some of the things I've learned from one interface and applying it to the next, only in really ways that make a lot of sense. It's not super heavy-handed. And Daniel, could you touch on a little bit some of the background of what you guys have done to make this possible and why it's like this?
Sure. I think it comes from a few different things, and one of them is that we're a team that has always been about building applications. From the very beginning, that was always the thing that we were most excited about, was building applications. Before we even built elementary OS, it was building applications. And we're also a very small team. So anything that we can do to make development of the applications easier and faster for ourselves is something that we want to put into. So we built this thing, Granite, like a while ago, right? And on each of these applications that you're looking at, it has this welcome screen. And that's actually a widget that's part of that library, Granite. And it makes it really easy for us as developers and other people as developers to use this design pattern. And they get the nice same layout, they get all the same text styles, and it's just, you know, plug and play, just pops in and it's magic for them. And like you said, it makes it feel nicer for people when they come into an application that they haven't seen before. They have familiar iconography. Things are laid out familiar. They know where to go. You can just click out of habit, and you don't have to think about, okay, I'm on a new application. How do I import things in this application? It's the same. You have the same pattern. So it's easy to jump into a new application.
It seems like it's great for users, but it also seems like it's great for developers because it gives them a way to fit the design look of the desktop without having to create it each time they build an application from whole cloth, and so there'd be inconsistencies or things done slightly different between developers, whereas this is a kit that they can start with, and it not only makes it easier for them and gets them started quicker, but it gives consistency for the user. That's a big win.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, like I said, because we're a small team, that when we're dogfooding these things, we make sure that it's easy to do, because when we build a new application or change something, that would be a pain for us to do that too, to have to pull, try to copy the code, make sure it gets right, and all the QA time that goes into it and things like that. So the easier that we can make it for developers to build these applications that fit into the interface guidelines, I think the better it is for everyone.
Yeah, it's some solid work, and one of the reasons why I think it's worth mentioning in Loki, even though it's not necessarily new to Loki, is I think in some ways when I'm sitting down, I see Loki as a payoff of this idea that you guys have been working on for a long time. And at each release, it gets close. That vision gets closer and closer to being realized, and it feels like Loki's super close. It's based on top of Ubuntu 16.04, which is a great platform to start from. But you guys have really taken it and made it feel like its own complete whole product, more so than any distro out there, I think. And so my hat's off to you. And I guess we should probably give people information about where to find Loki, how to get it, and maybe how to contribute to the project if they want to. We should probably let everybody know all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website right now and go to elementary.io, and the download's right there on our website. It's a pay what you want download. So just, whichever, we have some nice buttons to select. Or there's a custom field you can put, whatever you think it's worth in there. We're real strong believers in pay what you want. So it's up to you how much you value it. And then you get the options for your magnet link or direct download there. And if you're a developer and you want to contribute, or a translator or a designer, or, anybody that has any idea of like, I want to get involved with this project, we have a webpage for that. And there's a link up on our little nav bar that says Get Involved. And you can go there, and there's a whole page just describing all the different ways that you can interact with the project, and advice on how to get started, and guides and links and things like that.
Yeah, I will add that like the polish of the desktop, that area is also very polished. You guys did some work recently on your open source page and all of that. It just looks fantastic. And I love the burn down chart you have published. It's really neat stuff. And I love that the attention to detail doesn't end with the desktop. It permeates through the website and all of it and through the community. So congratulations, guys, on what looks like to be your most polished release yet. I'm super excited to celebrate it with you. Congratulations to you guys and the entire Elementary OS team.